For generations, those words echoed across television screens, filling living rooms with the promise of adventure, courage, and unity. Star Trek wasn't just a show, it was a movement. It inspired scientists, astronauts, and dreamers to reach for the stars. It gave the world Captain James T. Kirk, fearless, commanding, charismatic. But behind the perfectly polished hull of the USS Enterprise was chaos, feuds, fistfights, silent grudges, sabotage. And at the center of this cosmic storm, the man behind the captain's chair, William Shatner. To fans, he was a hero. To many of his co-stars, he was something else entirely. So how did the man who defined Star Trek become one of the most polarizing figures in television history? What did success cost him? And how did he go from the top of the world to living in a truck camper? This is the untold, unstoppable rise, fall, and rise again of William Shatner, TV's most complicated legend. Chapter 1, A Star is Born. William Shatner's life began as dramatically as one of his future performances on March 22, 1931, in the heart of a blizzard in Montreal, Canada. The snowstorm was so severe, his mother couldn't make it to the hospital. Instead, William was born at home, surrounded not by doctors, but by fate. From a young age, it was clear this boy had something, an unshakable presence. At just 8 years old, he stepped into the world of performance, joining a theater program led by one of Canada's most respected actresses. While other children stumbled through lines, young Bill Shatner delivered with power and polish. By the time he was 10, he was already a professional. His voice graced CBC radio shows, his face lit up local theater stages. He played Tom Sawyer, charming audiences and critics alike. In 1948, he entered McGill University, but he wasn't destined for books and lectures. "I skipped more classes than I attended," he later confessed. But what he did attend were rehearsals. In college, he wrote and starred in a play so captivating, CBC invited him to television. Shatner was addicted to the thrill of performance, and by 1956, he was ready to bet it all. He left behind Canada, family, and safety, and moved to New York City. Chapter 2, Almost Anything But Star Trek. New York in the 1950s was electric, but ruthless. For every role, there were hundreds of actors clawing to be seen. But Shatner wasn't just another hopeful. He stood out. He soon landed a role in a Broadway production, Tamburlaine the Great. It only lasted 20 performances, but to Shatner, it was a sign. He was in the game. By the late 50s and early 60s, he was everywhere. Alfred Hitchcock Presents, The Twilight Zone, The Outer Limits. Shatner had a gift for portraying emotionally fragile men, characters on the edge of breakdown, battling unseen fears. His two Twilight Zone episodes, Nick of Time and Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, are still considered among the show's most iconic. The image of Shatner, sweating, panicked, convinced there's a creature on the plane's wing, unforgettable, and yet fate almost pulled him in another direction. In 1963, Shatner starred in a pilot as Alexander the Great, alongside Adam West. Had that show been picked up, we might never have seen Captain Kirk, but fate had other plans. NBC rejected the first Star Trek pilot, starring Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Pike. Too cerebral, they said, too slow. Most shows would have been scrapped. But Star Trek was different. NBC did something rare. They ordered a second pilot. That pilot needed a new captain. Someone bold, someone commanding, someone who could carry the weight of a starship on their shoulders. Enter William Shatner. Chapter 3, From Star to Supernova. From his first moments as Captain James T. Kirk, Shatner redefined what a sci-fi hero could be. He didn't want Kirk to be stiff, robotic, or distant. No, he made him human, curious, flawed, charming, capable of cracking a joke just as easily as giving a command. His Kirk wasn't just a leader, he was a friend. Shatner's inspiration? A blend of naval hero Horatio Hornblower and, ironically, Alexander the Great, the role he'd nearly built a different career on. This mix of intellect, swagger, and humanity struck a nerve. Viewers didn't just watch Captain Kirk, they believed in him. But behind the iconic episodes, trouble brewed. Tensions with co-stars began to rise, especially with Leonard Nimoy, who played the fan-favorite Mr. Spock. Shatner, feeling threatened by Spock's popularity, allegedly started rewriting scripts, trimming other actors' lines, and expanding his own. During one infamous shoot, he walked into Nimoy's camera shot 17 times, forcing retake after retake until Nimoy nearly walked off set. The rest of the cast started calling it the Shatner-Nimoy Show. But Shatner wasn't just egotistical, he was intensely driven. He believed in the show. He lived it, sometimes too much. During one heated disagreement over a dramatic scene, Shatner wanted emotional fireworks. Nimoy preferred subtlety. The clash was so intense, it halted production for hours until creator Gene Roddenberry personally stepped in to mediate. Chapter 4: The Price of Stardom. As Star Trek soared, Shatner's personal life crumbled. He was barely home. His first wife, Gloria Rand, watched him vanish into the world of Starfleet Command. Over 3 years, he missed 217 family dinners, his daughter's 5th birthday, school plays, and even Christmas. In June 1969, just after the series ended, Gloria filed for divorce. Shatner later admitted, "I wasn't a husband. I was a captain of a fictional ship, and it cost me everything." To make matters worse, Star Trek was canceled. The show had a cult following, but that wasn't enough to save it. And for Shatner, life after the bridge was brutal. He was typecast. Hollywood saw him as Kirk, only Kirk. Roles dried up. Bills piled up. At one point, he was so broke, he lived in a pickup camper, parking in random lots to sleep. He'd do anything for a paycheck: low-budget horror movies, birthday parties, car shows. One Christmas, he couldn't afford gifts for his daughters, so he wrapped up old props from Star Trek, his phaser, his communicator, and gave them as presents. It was humbling. It was heartbreaking. But William Shatner, he never quit. Chapter 5: Redemption and Reinvention. In 1977, Star Wars took the world by storm. Paramount saw an opportunity and brought Star Trek back, not as a show, but as a major motion picture. With a $35 million budget, it was one of the most expensive movies of its time. Shatner was hesitant. He was older. He'd gained weight. He wasn't sure he could be Kirk again. But the money, and the promise of creative input, convinced him. He got in shape, lost 25 pounds, and stepped back onto the bridge. Star Trek, the motion picture, debuted in 1979. Reviews were mixed, but for fans, it was a reunion. And for Shatner, it was a rebirth. Then came Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, a smaller film with a bigger heart. It became one of the most beloved entries in the franchise. Shatner's performance was praised for its maturity, emotional depth, and iconic delivery. Khan, the screen became legendary. So did he. But William Shatner wasn't done. He had more to prove, more to lose, and still more frontiers to explore. Chapter 6: The Failure That Haunts. In 1989, William Shatner faced the biggest challenge of his Star Trek career, not as Captain Kirk, but as a director. Paramount gave him the reins for Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. It was a dream come true, and a ticking time bomb. Shatner had a bold vision. He wanted this film to be more than just space battles and alien threats. He envisioned a spiritual odyssey, one that would ask the ultimate question: does God exist? And if so, where is he in the universe? But Hollywood had other plans. Paramount slashed the budget. The elaborate special effects Shatner envisioned? Gone. His godlike alien antagonist? Replaced by a half-baked CGI energy being. Even key scenes, like Kirk climbing El Capitan without ropes, became campy instead of compelling. What was supposed to be Shatner's magnum opus became a meme. Critics roasted the film. Fans were stunned. Some called it the worst of the franchise. And once again, tensions between Shatner and Leonard Nimoy flared. Nimoy, who had directed the successful Star Trek IV, reportedly clashed with Shatner's creative decisions, deepening an already complicated rivalry. Shatner later called it the failure that haunted me, a personal and professional embarrassment that lingered for decades. But like always, he didn't retreat. He kept moving. Because even when grounded, William Shatner never stopped reaching for the stars. Chapter 7: A New Kind of Hero. By the 1980s, Shatner's Star Trek fame had peaked. Many expected him to fade quietly into nostalgia. But then came a twist no one saw coming. T.J. Hooker, a primetime police drama. Shatner wasn't sure. Could he convincingly play a no-nonsense cop? Would audiences buy it? He said yes, reluctantly at first, but soon, he gave it everything. He didn't just act, he threw himself into the role. Literally, he performed his own stunts, chasing suspects across rooftops, leaping from moving cars. He broke ribs, got concussions, all in the name of bringing life to Sergeant Hooker. And it worked. T.J. Hooker became a hit. Action figures hit the shelves. Comic books were printed. Ratings soared. Kids didn't just want to be Kirk anymore, they wanted to be Hooker too. Then came one of the most unexpected chapters of all, Priceline. In 1997, the struggling travel startup offered Shatner a quirky role, the negotiator, a smooth-talking, over-the-top pitchman for online travel deals. Most stars would have laughed, but Shatner, he leaned in, hard. He hammed it up with outrageous flair, karate-chopping prices, and delivering lines like he was still commanding the Enterprise. The result? Viral success. What was supposed to be a 6-week campaign turned into a 22-year partnership. And here's the kicker, Shatner, ever the gambler, took stock instead of cash. When Priceline boomed, rumors swirled that his shares were worth hundreds of millions. He never confirmed the figure, but the man who once lived in a camper was now a business icon. Chapter 8, Legacy and Loss. As the 2000s rolled in, Shatner's second act kept growing. And just when the world thought they had seen every side of him, he surprised everyone, again. In 2004, he took on the role of Denny Crane in Boston Legal, an eccentric, aging attorney battling the early signs of dementia. Shatner turned what could have been a caricature into one of the most complex, heartfelt performances of his career. Funny, brilliant, broken, human. The role earned him 2 Emmy Awards, the first of his career. Not for Kirk, not for Hooker, but for Denny Crane, a reminder that William Shatner was still evolving. Meanwhile, his creative side found new outlets. Shatner, the musician? Yes, his spoken word albums, once mocked, suddenly found a cult following. And in 2004, he released his Ben, produced by Ben Folds. Critics were shocked. Songs like Common People and That's Me Trying resonated with vulnerability and wit. Shatner wasn't just joking anymore. He was reflecting, feeling, exposing himself through music. He became a prolific author, writing novels, memoirs, even sci-fi thrillers. Over 30 books in total, each one peeling back layers of a life lived in the spotlight and in the shadows. But perhaps nothing touched fans more than his 2016 book, Leonard. It was a tribute, a confession, a mourning. Shatner detailed his complex, often troubled friendship with Leonard Nimoy, filled with laughter, jealousy, respect, and, ultimately, regret. Nimoy's death in 2015 shattered him. Their final years had been strained. I thought we had more time, Shatner wrote. It was honest, painful, real, and it moved fans around the world. Chapter 9, Beyond the Stars. At an age when most people settle into silence, William Shatner kept chasing new adventures. In October 2021, he stepped onto a real rocket, Blue Origin's New Shepard. At 90 years old, he became the oldest person in history to travel to space. And when he returned to Earth, he wept. Not tears of joy, but awe, sadness, wonder. The darkness of space, he said, was like death. The fragility of Earth was overwhelming. For a man who pretended to explore the stars for decades, this moment was real, and it changed him. But his personal life? Still complicated. 4 marriages. One tragic loss. His third wife, Naring Kidd, died in 1999. Alcohol, accidents, rumors. Shatner was left devastated, and for years, he blamed himself. Yet, he kept going. He stayed close to his daughters, became a grandfather, a mentor, a storyteller. He still signs autographs, records albums, gives interviews, attends fan conventions, and surprises people with his insatiable curiosity. Even at 93, William Shatner refuses to sit still. William Shatner's life isn't just the story of an actor. It's the story of reinvention, of being idolized, then ostracized, and still rising again, of facing public humiliation, personal grief, professional sabotage, and still choosing to smile, to sing, to soar. He played a space captain, then became a real-life space traveler. He lost friends, fame, and fortune, but never his drive, never his edge, never his sense of wonder. Because for William Shatner, the mission was never just about warp speed or photon torpedoes. It was about humanity, about searching, always, for meaning, love, purpose, and maybe, somewhere out there, the next great adventure. At 93 years old, William Shatner still boldly goes. Because for him, there's always a new frontier. Inspired by Shatner's incredible journey? Then don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more untold Hollywood legends, and hit the bell so you never miss a story of rise, fall, and redemption. Drop in the comments if you believe it's never too late to reach for the stars. Because if William Shatner taught us one thing, it's that the adventure is never over.